In this review, come upstairs. In this review, Mommy, look under the bed. In this review,
So SKINAMARINK, it was a movie that I watched, and it was interesting to say the least. It was horror, if you didn't get the vibes from the first part of this video, and it was very experimental. And what I loved about the movie was that it leaves a lot of the story up to the viewer's interpretation and imagination. It has lingering shots into dark hallways or dark doorways or just the creak of a door or the door slightly ajar, and you're just waiting for something to happen. And sometimes there's a grain across the whole thing, and so you see this flickering images of things that may or may not be there in the darkness, and it really gave this nightmarish quality to the whole thing that I thought was very effective watching at home alone in the semi-dark. And yeah, it was really like nothing else I've seen before. It's kind of trying to evoke the creepypasta videos or you know, the kind of like very easy, anybody could make it, but it's really well crafted, I think. It's got enough scares and not just creepy atmosphere, but some jump scares as well that really caught me off guard. But yeah, the main thing about it is the atmosphere and how it plays off 90s nostalgia for me. I was a 90s kid, and so even the house that I live in now, it was a 90s built house, and so some of the features of the house in the movie looked a lot like the townhouse that I'm in. So that kind of played an extra little factor for me. The cartoons were much older. They were all free to use, so they were like from the 50s or maybe a little bit later or earlier, I'm not sure. But so those weren't nostalgic for me per se, but everything else was very nostalgic, but in a very creepy sense of I've woken up, I don't know what's happening, don't know where parents are, I don't know if I'm dreaming or if I'm awake, and that was the vibe throughout the video, and it got weird, but it stayed very minimalist, and everything that was done in the camera, I more or less said, oh yeah, I could see how they did that, or I can see how it was filmed to a degree. There's not really performances to speak of. There's two kids, and there's the mom and the dad, and then there's the SKINAMARINK, I guess. There's something else in the house, and that's all I'll say. But as it progresses, yeah, you don't see much of the kids or the performances. I don't even know if you ever see their faces, except for in one very frightening instance, you do see one of the kids' faces. But yeah, it was really good. One thing I wrote down here, yeah, it invites the viewer's collaboration to explore their own fears and what springs forth from like the primal depths of your imagination. It really plays on, it doesn't tell you the straightforward narrative. It just yeah, it just invites you in to be a collaborator with the movie in a way that some will call lazy, or some will call like this isn't really a film. It doesn't have the 3-act structure that you're looking for. But for me, I thought it was really refreshing, like watching a very long form YouTube video that kind of keeps you thinking, keeps you up at night, keeps you guessing. And yeah, I thought the ending, it really stuck the landing for me. I won't the whole time I thought the most effective scares, other than a couple good jump scares, were and some really good like creepy dialogue thrown throughout. The most effective scares were just like what I could cook up in my imagination when looking into a dark thing. And it ends on something similar where it's a blurry thing and you think you know you think you might know what it is, and then it just flashes through, like, doesn't flash through, it's very subtle, but in my mind I was seeing faces, all these hundreds of different faces on this one little blur, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's cool. And I don't even know if the image was moving. I suspect it was, or if it was slightly unfocusing, refocusing, but I could make out the human mind is meant to pick up meaning. It's meant to pick out faces in everything we see. And when you look into the clouds, it's easy to pick up faces, or if you look at something for a long time, you can kind of, we're trained to identify faces and facial recognition, and so that plays into this thing as you're expecting a creepy thing. I thought the atmosphere was great throughout. The only thing I would say is it runs too long. The movie was a little too long for what it was. I think it was almost 2 hours, hour and 40 minutes maybe an hour 30, not including the credits. But still, 90 minutes still felt a little too long. I would have cut at least 10 minutes, maybe a few less Lego shots or a few less, just not, I think it lingered too long on a lot of shots, and maybe it didn't linger long enough on some others. But all in all, I really enjoyed the film for what it was. It's very basic, but I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's my first review of 2023. Not my first movie I watched. I also watched The Pale Blue Eye on Netflix with Christian Bale, and I thought that was all right. I think I'd give that one a 7 out of 10. But yeah, this is the first movie that I saw that had a lot of buzz surrounding it, and so glad I watched it. And I don't think everybody's gonna like it. I think a lot of people will hate it. I know a lot of people have already hated it, but for me, it was very experimental, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my review. Until the next one, I'll see you soon. Bye.